by Cook County Higher Ed, Cook County Local Energy Project, Zero Waste Cook County, and Reduce, Reuse, Renew. A little about me. I have a husband named Guy, and I'm a mother of three. I was going to say mother of three and husband of one. And I moved to Grand Marais in June of 2020. My background is I'm a hematology oncology nurse. I did that for over a decade. I've been away from the bedside for a little while now, but when I had my third child in 2013, little Zoe, is when I really started to take a deep dive into really getting into like low waste living. I've always been really into sustainability and like recycling and being mindful of like toxic burdens, but just kind of really rethinking. And it started with one of those waste audits that Laura talked about last week. And I would really encourage, if you haven't checked out Laura's class that she taught last week, to give that a view, because I think it's really complementary to the stuff I'll be talking to today. I'm also a master recycler composter, just recently became an integrative nutrition health coach. And when I was in St. Paul, I co-founded another group called Zero Waste St. Paul. And then here in Cook County, my neighbor Denny said, let's start a zero waste Cook County. So we've started that. And started a green team at my kids' school. And one of the things that I'm most proud of that we've accomplished in zero waste land is the Sustainable to Go packaging ordinance in St. Paul, Zero Waste St. Paul, and a lot of other groups work together to get this passed, which means there's no more styrofoam packaging in St. Paul. Now that because of COVID, it didn't get rolled out as swiftly as originally planned, but that is hopefully going to come into fruition soon. I brought you here to talk about your garbage. And I really like this picture of Oscars, you know, I love trash. I resonate with that. I just thought it was funny. And anyway, what we'll be covering is thoughtful waste prevention, or thoughtful waste prevention and thoughtful consumption, how to recycle in Cook County, wish cycling, some tips and tricks to optimize your recycling, possible community-led solutions for hard to recycle items, and closing thoughts and questions. If I tend to talk with my hands, and in the past when I would teach, I would walk. So I don't really sit well when I educate. So if I'm kind of bombastic here, let me know. And I also tend to talk fast when I really care about something. So if I am talking too fast, just give me a heads up and say, slow it down. I'm also concerned about not having enough time to get through everything here. So, all right. So here I like to talk about a waste hierarchy, but that's kind of dry. I really like this image of the waste hierarchy, because I love how it talks about rethinking your choices, refusing single use, reducing your consumption, reusing everything as much as we can, refurbishing old stuff, repair before you replace, repurpose, and recycle. And the image has hands of different skin tones holding each of those things I just said, from top to bottom, kind of in a staggered way. Here's another way of looking at the waste hierarchy: refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot. And the previous one didn't have rot, and that's going to be really important, as we'll talk about later on this evening. But what we want to be doing is acting as high up on the waste hierarchy as possible, as much as we can. Nature, by definition, is cyclical, and there is virtually no waste in the natural world that does not provide food for other living systems. And so when we're thinking about the ways we interact with the ecosystem, we want to try to emulate nature and its cyclical nature, cyclical fashion as much as possible. So often we should be asking, what would nature do? You know, as much as we can. All right, this is a loaded screen. I will read through it, but you will be getting the slides so you can review this stuff on your own. And there are going to be some links in these slides that you can click into later on too. So the average American wastes about 5.5 pounds of trash a day. Now, but Cook County, sorry, y'all, we actually do worse than that. And I think that's due to the tourism factor. So we are about 5.25 pounds a day. I got this from the Cook County solid waste master plan. And so it's about a ton of trash, a ton of trash per person per year. And of that, about 25% of it was recycled, and about 70-ish% of it went to the Moccasin Mike landfill in Superior, Wisconsin. However, keep in mind that none of this accounts for the upstream waste that we create. It's a 70-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 pound or 1 bag of trash we create, there are 70 bags created upstream, and all the manufacturing and all the processing that goes into making the goods that we consume. It's a lot. So just something to keep in mind, that the people who make our stuff make a lot of waste, and there's a lot big onus on them to decrease the amount of waste that they create. But we also, when we consume, we can try to cut that off too. If we can work higher on that waste hierarchy by reusing and reducing and refusing. So one of the things I wanted to touch on really quickly, because food takes up more space than anything in our US landfill, is food. I would be remiss to not have a conversation about recycling if I did not mention food. This again is this slide is so abbreviated. I could spend an hour or more just talking about food waste and how to prevent it and things we can do and composting. And so again, just realize this is very abbreviated. About 1/3 of the world's food is lost to waste. And in the United States, the food waste estimated about between 30 and 40% of the food supply. It's a huge environmental cost. And we could do a deep dive into all of that in a different class. And I would love to have the opportunity to do something like that. In addition, we could pair that with a food waste challenge where people can do food waste audits in their homes. We have scales, and you can really dig deep into doing a waste audit, similar to what Laura was talking about with waste, a general waste in your home. So speaking of food waste and composting, I really encourage you to go and check out David Abbas's composting class. He just hosted with Cook County Higher Ed. He is really passionate. He really knows his stuff, and he's just a great resource. There are some things I would like to encourage you to do if you aren't doing them already, is to start collecting food scraps and set up a backyard bin. David talks about how to do that. I know it can seem a little bit intimidating at first to do it, but really, honestly, even if you kind of mess it up, it's easy to fix. Like there's troubleshooting, and I'm a master composter recycler, and I'm a resource that can be available to help you. If you're like, my bin looks a little funky, let me know. You can take a picture and we can try to troubleshoot it together as well. Also, I want to bring forward a really cool website called Share Waste. And this is a way that we can connect people who want to compost their food scraps and people who already have compost bins that they might be willing to accept those scraps. So this can be a really great way for people to divert their organic material from the landfill while getting to know each other, which is totally my jam. I think that's just like, we should be connecting to our waste and to each other because it's all connected. And thank you to Kat and Laura for putting me onto this Share Waste. And you'll be hearing a lot more of this from us as well. I want to really emphasize that there is no way. Right here's a picture of the Moccasin Mike landfill. So all of our waste travels 120 miles to Superior, Wisconsin, to the Moccasin Mike landfill. And our recycling doesn't travel just about as far to Proctor, to Hartels. So Moccasin Mike Superior landfill was slated to close this year, actually, but they got an extension to 2026. Let me tell you, people are scrambling. They're trying to figure out what to do. Their MPCA has not granted a new landfill permit since 1993. They're pretty much telling the counties and municipalities, you need to just figure out how to reduce your waste. We're not opening up any more landfills, figure it out. There's other landfills in the state, you're just going to have to drive your waste further. And so where is it going to go? There's a few landfills that we can be driving it to, but regardless of that, it's going to mean our trash is going to have to travel even further, meaning it's going to even have a higher carbon footprint. That's why it's really incumbent upon us, based on our location where we live, to not just to reduce our trash and our recycling, and to divert as much as we can to composting and recycling, but really working higher up on that waste hierarchy of trying to close the loop and reuse and refusal, and really rethinking our consumption and the life cycle of the things we buy. So where do I recycle in Cook County? Good question. So the Grand Marais Recycling Center is the hub of the Cook County area, but there are other places. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Cook County Recycling Center. Here are the hours. I'm not going to read them off. This will be available to you, and it's also on the county website. I want to mention that there is a budget shop as well, which is like a little thrift shop. So we do have an issue with textiles not being recyclable. And so we have many thrift stores in the area that are available. We have odds and ends, we have first and second, and we have the budget shop. And there's a couple others in Two Harbors and Silver Bay, but I want to stick really close to like the Cook County area for this talk. So the budget shop and the thrift stores, they take clothing that's saleable, that's nice, that's, you know, and somebody else would want to wear. They're not going to take your trash. So be mindful of that. So there's a Tofty transfer station. Their hours are a little more limited, but they accept scrap metal. They also accept some demolition material. They accept garbage there, so you don't have to drive it all the way to North Shore Waste. They accept appliances and white goods, which I think those are like if you had furniture or mattresses, things like that aren't reusable, they'll take those for a fee. I talked to Brody, he's the attendant, he's super nice. If you ever go there, make sure you say hi. And I asked him, you know, what would you really appreciate people doing when you come to this transfer station? And he said he would really appreciate people crush their cans, because those green trailers only have a limited amount of volume. And if that volume is taken up by air, what he said is that if they're overflowing, if he's not going to take them with him, they end up going in the trash. So if you leave recyclables beside the trailers, the chances are they're going to be trashed because they don't want the birds to get into them and just spill it everywhere. So if you do go to one of these green trailers and they're overflowing, and it's best just to wait and not bring it then. So big thing you wanted to say, I don't know if railroad ties are a big commodity item, but he said many times, no railroad ties and no concrete accepted there. All right. So here's some other pictures of the Tofty transfer station. Continue. They do take scrap metal. The recycling center in Grand Marais does not take scrap. So please do not put scrap metal into the containers. We'll get more into the nitty gritty of what can and cannot be accepted, but the Tofty transfer station and the North Shore transfer station can both take scrap. Yeah. All right. So here we are about the green recycling trailers. One of the things that I was talking when I brought up, hey, questions and concerns and barriers for recycling are the hours of the recycling centers. Great thing about the green recycling trailers, 24/7 access. So you don't have to worry about them being accessible. I'm pretty sure most of them are 24/7. I didn't get a chance to go to all of them. I went to the one in Hovland. However, if you do go to the other ones and they are locked up, please let me know, because I'd like to make sure that the information I'm sharing in these talks is accurate. But to best of my knowledge, these are 24/7 accessibility. One of the biggest things Tim Nelson said with these particular trailers is the dumping. Please don't wish cycle. Please don't leave things there that aren't recyclable. Please don't dump. It just makes it more expensive, more labor intensive, and it just makes them. We want to have the trailers. We want to keep the trailers. We gotta take care of the trailers. So one of the things the trailers don't accept, FYI, is cardboard. So if you do have cardboard, you're going to have to bring them to town in a different trip. It's just FYI. I think it's just too much volume. So I'm going to stop there for just a second and see if there's any questions. And we're going to get to stuff later on. So if we're going to get to it, I'll let you know.
It looks like no questions yet in the chat.
All right.
Just one person mentioned that they hope that you can get to the number 5s in regards to recycling.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there. We're going to talk about the 5s. Don't worry about that. I've got a whole thing on that.
One question
tells today just about that too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yep.
One question just popped up in chat, wondering about prepping of bottles and cans. And the metal rings and labels that might be on them, what that
Great.
needs to be done.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind when we get to that part of the presentation. Okay. Awesome questions. Okay. All right. North Shore Waste is another location for waste disposal, and they also accept things that like washers, dryers, scrap metal for free. So keep that in mind too. And what they do is they'll sell those metals for as a profit for their business, and it's nice to keep that money local. So bringing those things to them is a good thing, because we want to keep that money we're circulating locally. So don't bring your scrap to the recycling center, bring it to the transfer station, please. Okay, so what can I recycle in Cook County? Now, if you're from the Metro and you move to Cook County, or you're somebody who's a tourist and is up in Cook County and maybe caught this seminar, or whatever we want to call it, workshop, and want to learn about how to optimize what you can recycle in Cook County, you're going to find out that it's a little bit different, like a lot different. So it's good. I'm glad you're here. And I hope that you learned something, because I learned a lot even by preparing this slideshow. All right. So thank you to Cook County Local Energy Project for creating these next slides that I will be sharing. Thank you, Kat. So Kat created this great guide to recycling in Grand Marais. So all materials must be clean and dry. Now, clean, don't use up too much water to get the item clean, but you want to make sure there isn't like food that's like visibly on there. You want to make a good faith effort to get all of it out, give it a good rinse. You don't need to put it through the dishwasher. I just talked to Dan Hartel today, and he said, no, it's not true. If there's a couple of things that have food in them, it's not going to wreck the entire bale. However, he wants to emphasize that he wants the products prepared to be clean, so, if he says, if you tell somebody a little bit clean, they'll leave a whole slice of pizza in the box, so he wants people to realize that like a little bit of grease on there is okay. If you're at a peanut butter in there, a little bit in there is okay, but just make sure there isn't big chunks of food or stuff in there. All recyclables must be removed from their bags or boxes. So please don't put, especially in the mixed paper, the paper bags in there. Paper bags have some props here. Paper bags are supposed to be recycled with cardboard. So when you have your office paper and paper bag, dump it into that office paper or the mixed paper, put this in the cardboard, or if it's still usable, take it home again and use it again. All right. So glass, no ceramics, no dishware, no Pyrex, no window glass. Those glasses melt at a different melting point. And so they do not want those in the glass waste recycling stream. Mason jars are okay. Anything that came with food in it's okay, like your spaghetti jars, your salad dressing jars, your mason jars, but we don't want a glass like this in there, or window glass, things like that. Steel and tin cans, flatten them to save space in a bin. Those little plastic rings that might be on some of those items, don't worry about that, it'll come out. Don't worry about getting a little plastic ring off, it's fine. A little bit there, that's considered contamination. If you can get off easily without hurting yourself, go for it, but don't worry about it to the point of like, you might hurt yourself by cutting it off with a knife or something. I don't know if that answers the question that was earlier about the rings of plastic on items. So, aluminum cans, we're going to go a little deep on aluminum cans tonight, because there's some issues that are arising with aluminum cans that need to be addressed here. And then aluminum foil, make sure that it's free of food and it's clean. So here's our deep dive into aluminum cans. I got one here, Wild State Cider. That's what's in my glass. Because I needed a prop. And so anyway, so this, I don't know if you can see this. There we go, because I have a blur on there. You guys are all familiar with how some of these cans have this wrap on them. This is a problem. Dan Hartel says that recyclers around the country are refusing, or what's the word I'm looking for? Refusing bales of aluminum because of this plastic on there. So it's really important to take it off. And I know it's a big PETA to do it, but you got to do it. So the reason is because when they shred the aluminum to go through the smelters, this plastic gets tangled in their shredding process and damages their equipment. Also, it can causes fires in their furnaces because it flames up at a different temperature. So big deal. It's becoming more and more of a deal. It wasn't a big of a deal when these were a smaller part of the waste stream or the percentage, but they're becoming more and more. I don't know if we just seem to drink from hoity-toity, like, a craft brewers. I think your bigger places have the printed cans, and it's mainly because when you print your cans, you have to get a huge amount. So these smaller companies they're not getting big production, so they use these labels instead. So yeah, so crush your cans if possible, just to conserve the space. Price for aluminum is also at a 10-year high. So also those recyclers don't want to pay for the weight of these labels on the recycling, because then they're paying for plastic when they should be paying for aluminum. So another reason why they're kind of refusing bales with that on there, because it's driving up their prices. And yeah, reject, that's the word I was looking for, rejecting bales. And but aluminum, 50-75% of the aluminum that's been ever produced is still in use. So aluminum is a recycling success story. And recycling uses like only 5% of the energy and carbon emissions compared to making it from raw materials. And it's cheaper. So it's just a win-win-win. We want to do everything we can to keep the aluminum circulating. And from start to finish, usually it's about 90 days from when you put your can in and it comes back out as another can. So the return over is really quick as well. Here's another tip. Recycle like with like. So if you have like beer can, beer, like bottle tops and that are metal, that are magnetic metal, they can go into a steel can. And what I like to do is to put all those in there and to capture it, because sometimes those, especially in the cities where they have those big single stream sorts, those lids and stuff can get lost. But I think it's probably the same thing here, where you got all those little lids and things like that. It's just extra work for for the people who work at the recycling center to have to like scoop them up and find them. So if we can get those inside of the cans and pinch very carefully, it's sharp. My husband's personal injury attorney. I'm telling you, I'll be very careful to crimp the top of that can and capture those things inside of it. Now don't do what Pee-wee did and wait till your ball is that big. But we do want to make sure you're at least making your aluminum balls about the size of your fist. And also, again, just helps the recycling center to be able to handle and control those items, so they're not just having little bits of tinfoil everywhere. But yeah, does anybody else remember Pee-wee's big ball there? Whenever I think about balling up my tinfoil, I always think of Pee-wee's like big ball of tinfoil. Anyway, all right, plastic containers. Containers that only 1s and 2s, that's it. Okay, I talked to Dan Hartel today because those plastics have the most stable markets and prices. And we'll get into number 5s in just a minute, why those aren't accepted. The containers must be clean, liquid drained, caps off. Last thing you want is a bottle with a cap on with a bunch of water in it. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. But if you can take the caps off and flatten things down, decrease the volume, that's really helpful too, especially in those trailers. No foam meat trays, no packing peanuts, no ridge styrofoam or similar materials. All right, so only number 1s and 2s only. So what about something like this? This came with some of my deli meat in it. It doesn't have anything on there. Trash. I don't know what kind of plastic this is. It's trash. So when in doubt, throw it out. We're going to say that a lot tonight. What about this one? Oh, it's number 5. Sorry, you're trash and you're black. The black plastic doesn't have good markets anyway. Mixed paper. This category can consist of the junk mail, office paper, computer paper, etc. Is there such thing as computer paper anymore with the little like perforated sides? I don't think so. But printer paper. I'm aging myself here. So paper must be clean and dry. No sanitary waste products. So no paper towels, Kleenex, pads, tampons. Please don't just say no to putting. I know we want to be green. There's other ways we can be green with our feminine products. Please don't recycle them. No carbon paper, like that kind of paper where they have the 3-layer paper. Please don't put any carbon paper in there. No plastic, no styrofoam cups. No brown or goldenrod colored envelopes. Those go with cardboard. Do your best to get those out if you can. Newspaper includes advertising inserts. Do not, again, we're going to reiterate this, do not place in the bin in grocery bags or tied bundles. This is really contaminating their office paper and their newspaper streams, because there's different fiber lengths, and then the glossy versus non-glossy, it's a different waste stream for the paper, and it goes to different places, and we're going to talk about that too. Magazines and catalogs, glossy publications only. So if it's a little glossy, throw it in with magazines, even if it's not a magazine. Say it's like a mailer that's glossy, just put it in there. Cardboard, it's also known as old corrugated containers. I may refer to this as OCC. So food and beverage packaging, brown grocery bags, brown goldenrod envelopes, gift wrap with a caveat, if it has metal or metallic stuff on it, trash. And then the phone books have their own container in there, so make sure you put in the phone books in their own place. No waxed cardboard. So that's it's kind of hard to figure out what's wax. Usually you'll see it's like your freezer box containers that are super waxy. You want to avoid those because those are typically coated with plastic. I talked to Dan Hartel about that. He says every once in a while, those get mixed in with the cardboard. It's not a big deal. He'll mix them in, but you want to try to avoid putting them in there if you can. And no oily pizza boxes. Now, again, with a caveat, it can be a little oily, but like I would say like a 3-inch diameter little oily spot's fine. Anything bigger than that, just rip that part out and put the good cardboard in the recycling, rip the oily part out. Or what I do sometimes is I will compost the bottom of my pizza box and recycle the top part. Because if we're looking at the waste hierarchy, getting that good cardboard in the recycling stream is important, but we don't want to put that other part in the landfill, so we can compost that cardboard in our backyard compost, just rip it up. Flatten the boxes, and special bins are located outside the recycling center for cardboard after business hours. That's good for the people who are using the trailers who maybe can't get to the center during office hours. Oh, textiles. Yeah, it's a dark. I was going to have this picture of Darth Vader before I went to this part. But the clothing, it's just, there is no real way of tracking the supply chains when these textiles are leaving our country, and we are really getting in the way of textile industries in other countries, like developing countries like Africa and in parts of Southeast Asia, and they're getting inundated with our textiles, and we're just essentially making a longer tailpipe, and they have to figure out how to deal with them, and it's inequitable, and they just don't have the infrastructure like we do to handle it either. So thankfully, and in a way, that's the silver lining, is that we're taking onus for our textile waste in a lot more ways than we did in the past. So again, looking at the waste hierarchy, we talked earlier about making sure you're refusing. Do you really need that fast fashion? Could you buy it used? Can you wait a little bit and search for it online used, or maybe get something similar to it at a thrift store? Fixing things, visible mending is kind of trendy. And even if it isn't, we're those kind of people that we're trendsetters, right? And so we're going to go out and get those, mend your jeans, mend your shirt. There's really great tutorials. Pinterest is a great place to look for really cute mending ideas as well. That can make it like a little fashion statement and just be a fun, crafty thing to do as well. try to, the budget shop accepts lots of things, same with the other 2 thrift stores. Let's try to keep that loop closed. And because of our location, we have a really great opportunity for really having a reuse economy. Because if we donate our stuff out, that means that there's likely someone else in our area that could use it. There's lots of great options through Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Boreal Classifieds, oh gosh, and then the thrift stores. And great time to be a thrifter. And also I was going to put a picture of one of my favorite guys from Queer Eye. He has the hairstyling line, and I'm totally forgetting his name, Van Ness. He has like this sign.
Jonathan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He has a sign like I gift thrift, and I'm like, that's why I love you. And so yeah, let's normalize gifting secondhand and pre-loved things to each other as well. Just saying. All right, used oil and filters. Place oil in sealed plastic containers, transport to the recycling center. Ask the attendant at the recycling center for assistance with oil filters and used oil. I personally do not have experience firsthand with doing this. But they do accept the used oil, which is great. And necessary, do not pour it down the drain. Okay. My dad was an auto mechanic, and he would get really, really upset. He managed a place, and they would get big trouble in California if they poured oil down the drains. I remember my dad just blowing gaskets about it. So, so therefore I'm really about recycling my oil, but and I was worried about that working up here, but I'm glad to see they have this option. But say maybe you don't have time to drop off your recycling. Well, I mean, that's a business opportunity. And EcoBlue Recycling offers curbside recycling pickup in Grand Marais. So you can subscribe and they can come pick it up, and check out their website for more information. And they're a great option for businesses as well. They don't just do residential, they'll do businesses. And that's something that's hard for a lot of businesses, to get their recycling out of their business to the recycling center. So EcoBlue Recycling is trying to help solve that problem. Now, I'm going to stop here really quick and see if there's any questions about recycling.
Let's see. One person just made a comment that says a lot of milk cartons and juice cartons are wax, have wax and plastic on them, and they cannot be recycled.
Correct.
I had a question about, so recycling cardboard. If you accidentally get it wet and you let it dry out, are you still able to like recycle it then, right?
You're good to go. Yep. They just don't want, thank you for bringing that up. They don't want wet paper. Wet paper, you can dry it out a little bit. Otherwise, paper can, depends on how clean you need your compost to be. If you're a composter, if you're going to grow food in your compost, probably want to avoid putting paper that you don't know the origin of the ink on, because some of the laser inks are plastic. However, if you're going to use it just for amending, like your like your trees and things like that, it's better than it going to a landfill and sitting there and rotting and creating methane. So you can compost the paper at your own discretion with those caveats. Wish cycling, we don't want to wish cycle. And wish cycling is when we put something into the recycling bin, hoping that it will be get recycled. I'll do a time check here. Oh yeah, okay, we're good. And so wish cycling is just it's problematic because it contaminates the waste stream, and it makes recycling more expensive. It also requires lots of extra labor, and it can damage sorting systems and equipment. And the recycling systems are all based on commodity markets, and those markets are pretty volatile, and sometimes they're very thin margins to begin with. So we all have to be really take responsibility of doing the best we can and making sure we don't contaminate that stream. So when in doubt, throw it out. I keep saying that again. I don't know if these are all just common to Cook County, but these are common pretty much everywhere. But milk cartons can't be recycled here. They can be recycled in the metro. So if you want to store them and give them to a friend or family who's coming up to and leaving, that's great. Make sure you don't crush them. the shape of the carton for the facilities in the Twin Cities is necessary for it to be sorted properly. So I know that's hard to store like all these cartons that aren't flattened, but if you flatten it, it doesn't get sorted properly. So FYI, if you're going to store it for a friend or family in the cities. Plastics 5, 6, 7, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, anything but 1 or 2, don't put them in there. Scrap metal, again, take that to the Tofty transfer station or take it to the North Shore transfer station. Styrofoam, it's trash. Now, if you have a lot of styrofoam from like a appliance, you may want to talk with the appliance center here and see if they are taking it back. I know Warner Stellian in the cities does take appliance styrofoam back. So if you happen to be in the cities and you have all this big styrofoam that hasn't touched food, like appliance, television, things like that, home goods styrofoam, stop in Warner Stellian, they'll take it. Plastic bags, please, please, please don't put that in the recycling. It just gunks up everything. Light bulbs, they see those in glass a lot. It's not the right type of glass. It shards, it cuts people. And sometimes those CFLs, those are actually filled with mercury, and those are hazardous waste. So please don't put those in there. Bulky plastic items like your yard toys or hampers and things like that. Yes, they have a recycling symbol on them. It doesn't mean that they can be recycled, just telling you the type of plastic they're made from. Broken ceramics, find someone who does mosaics, or find something, maybe you can do a fun art project with it. But they can't go in the glass, I'm sorry. Syringes, needles, sharps, medical waste. Find a tin can or a really, really thick plastic container, like a coffee, one of those like big thick coffee containers, and put your sharps in there, and then take them to hazardous waste, figure out where those can go. And I don't know the answers to some of these things, so I'm not sure where medical waste goes. I bet you could take them to the hospital or talk to the hospital. Maybe they take care of hazardous waste like that. Chains and hoses, chains that are metal, they could go to scrap, but like hoses, like your garden hoses, things like that, no. All right, so why can't I recycle number 5 plastics and milk cartons in Cook County? So plastic markets are linked to oil markets. And when the oil prices go up and down, it determines the price of plastic. So number 5 plastic, polypropylene, does not have stable end markets. So when the price of oil drops, the price of polypropylene bottoms out, and it doesn't make sense for anyone to sell it, because it just doesn't have a good return on investment for the amount of labor that's needed to sort it and the time and money to transport it. And there's multi-factors why we can't do it here. I talked to Dan Hartel today, and he said that to have him accept it would require a huge bale of number 5 plastics, which would mean, he says, it probably take you guys a year of collecting to even get enough to make that bale size. And maybe at the beginning of the year, it would make sense based on the prices of polypropylene, but at the end of the year, the price could be bottomed out, and we just literally just stored a bunch of trash for the year. So we don't have a large enough quantity of recycling coming in to make it make financial sense for us to store it and sort it and all that stuff. That could change in the future, but right now, unfortunately, no. All right. And number 1 and number 2 plastics, their values stay relatively stable despite oil prices. And so those 2 are worth collecting. Same thing with the cartons. A large quantity of carton is required before they can be sold. And in that time, they sit, they rot, they degrade, and it's not, you can't really do it here. So when in doubt, throw it out. I know this is how exactly I know it hurts our brains to throw something out when we want to recycle it, but this is how I feel, this little guy here. So, So where does our recycling go, and is it actually recycled? Yes, it is. So I talked to, I'm gonna keep saying, I talked to Dan Hartel today. I feel like it was a thing to get him to call me back. I mean, he was great when he called me back, but he's great. So newspaper goes to Matt Inc. in Floodwood. And I want to emphasize here how recycling is an economic multiplier. Look how many jobs are created here, how much money is staying in our economy. When we throw away recyclables, we're throwing money away and jobs away, local good paying jobs. So you can look here for yourself. Newspaper goes to Matt Inc. Make mats for controlling for erosion control. That little small family business employs about 3 dozen people in Floodwood. Cardboard, OCC, Liberty Paper. They keep over 220,000 tons of OCC out of landfills each year. International company, actually one of my neighbors in St. Paul worked for them. Really good paying jobs. They're a great family company. He couldn't say greater things about that business. Magazines go to West Rock. New office paper goes to Wisconsin. Steel cans recycled in Gary, Indiana. That's all I got. There's a lot of steel mills there. It's a steel town, so I don't know which one I went to, but glass goes to Strategic Materials in St. Paul, and those are turned into glass containers and other various things like fiberglass and road construction grit and many things. Reason why we can put all of them together is because they have a way through optical scanners to sort the cullet into different colors. So we don't have to sort our glass. And it's nice we have some place that's so close so that it's because glass is really heavy, and for it to be transported across the country wouldn't make sense. And so for it to be recycled. So it's nice we have these local options, and local being relative, but 4 hours away, still pretty local. Aluminum goes to Alcoa, and he said to me that it was in St. Louis, but when I was looking up the smelters for Alcoa, I didn't see one in St. Louis. So, but there's quite a few of them that are in, I think, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Dan said there aren't very many aluminum smelters, so they can be super picky about what they take. One of the reasons why they're starting to get pickier about this. Plastics, that one was a little bit more like a little bit of a dark hole there. He said they're sold to a broker who sells the 1s and 2s domestically. He says his brokers, places he sells it changes so much because it's such a dynamic market. He doesn't know exactly where he's selling them right now, but he knows it's domestic. All right, harder to recycle items. And this is something that, I think through community meetings and getting together and talking about these things, this is not an exhaustive list of hard to recycle things. Plastic bags. So I was going to grab 1 second, be right back. Show you my trick to know if your plastic bag can be recycled or if it should go into the trash. So you want to make sure that there's all these dual layer bags out there. Okay, so this type of a bag should not go in your plastic bag recycling. This is a dual layer bag. You can't stretch through it. It's very sturdy. These are great for reuse, by the way. This is a bag that had apples in. This bag, you can see how my thumb goes right through it like that, stretchy. This can go in plastic film recycling. This bag is not stretchy. This is a dual layer bag. No for plastic bag recycling. So there's also a list of things here on this publication from plasticfilmrecycling.org. We don't have places here in Cook County to collect them. However, lots of grocery stores do collect them in Duluth. And I believe Super One might be collecting them as well. And so that's the only thing we can send with the friend or family when they come to visit us, or if we go to the cities, just bring your bag of plastic bags or plastic film to the recycler. Now we want to try to reuse these as much as we can before we recycle them, because we want to think about that waste hierarchy, right? So these are best to be, if you have a dog, it's better to reuse the bag than to recycle the bag. Think about that way, then going out and buying new poop bags for your dog. Also, no, don't buy compostable poop bags because it's not getting composted. It's going into a landfill and gonna rot. You might as well reuse this bag. just sorry, that's a big pet peeve of mine. So here's a cereal bag, great for going to the co-ops where you have those bulk bins, and you can reuse those bags. These kind of bags too, just Sharpie out that barcode. These are great for bulk too. Kids' lunches. So I like to use lots of like really nice like stasher bags and things like that, the silicone bags, but I don't dare put those in my kids' lunch boxes because they will lose them. So I like to reuse these types of materials for my kids' lunches. So if they do lose it, not a big deal. All right. Paint care, great program, 2014. They passed a law in Minnesota. You sell paint, for the most part, you have to be able to take it back. And not even just the paint you sold, any paint. So these are some of the locations locally that will take your paint back. Just so you be aware of that. All right, so we're finishing up here. Zero Waste Cook County, we're having our kickoff meeting on July 11th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. via Google Meet. And we just have a loose agenda here. We're to meet each other. We have a gear swap, clothing swap plan for November 5th. We need some amazing people to help us create a super awesome swap event. We're gonna explore number 5 plastics more, see if there's any community-led small and medium scale solutions that we can create together. Composting, explore community-led small and medium scale solutions, promoting share waste. Maybe if Kat's there, she can talk about some updates she's heard from around the community on that. And then I was going to do some recaps of recycling if we have time at the meeting. And then we'll plan on having these meetings the second Tuesday of every month, unless there's like big conflicts for people who really want to get involved. So that concludes my talk. I don't think we're about good for time for about 10 minutes of questions. I was going to mention too, there are some other solutions for hard to recycle things like your toilet or your toothpaste tubes, your toothbrushes. There's TerraCycle, and those can be a solution. I mean, for things that you really can't avoid, like toothpaste, economically avoid. You know, there are things like tooth powders and tooth tabs and things like that. But I mean, we also, socioeconomics comes into play here. Accessibility to things comes into play here, and we cannot take those things out of consideration. And I realized I forgot to mention that egg cartons are recyclable. Ideally reuse them. There's lots of people who have chickens, but these can go into the recycling at the recycling center for cardboard. Or if you need some carbon in your compost, tear them up, put them in there for your carbon source. All right, thank you so much for being here. I super appreciate you being here. And this is my first time teaching in over 2.5 years, and on a subject in a new area that I have never taught on here. So I super appreciate your patience, and thank you so much. Let me know if there's any questions, and I'll do my best to find out the answers, or maybe someone else who's here knows the answer.
This has been great. You've done a great job. I think there was just one comment that someone had mentioned, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but it was the idea of, you know, I've heard concepts of it too, of certain recycling, just not much of it actually gets recycled, and especially in the form of plastics. Mm-hmm. Like where we've all kind of heard some statistics where it's like 90% of plastics don't get recycled. Is that true? Is kind of what that question was asking.
I think it depends on when they were getting those statistics from. So I believe in like 2018, there was something called the National Sword that went down in China. And so back in those, before then, we sent a lot of our plastic recycling to China. And they started to say, hey, you know what? We don't want your trash anymore, because we would send them these bales with all this trash. And so they made their thresholds for contamination so low, like they only would allow, like, I think it was like 1% or something, like really unattainable, to the point where the recyclers here couldn't meet that. And which then there was a little bit of a hiccup time where we had to really kind of hustle to create some domestic recycling in the United States to really create some economies and scale up on that stuff. So I think during that time, there was a lot of stuff that was getting trashed because we didn't have the ability for the supply that was coming in. We're slowly starting to build that capacity back up here in the United States. And honestly, while the national store in China was a bummer, it really helped us create some resiliency and really trying to create the local ways to handle our waste locally and within the United States. I mean, so yeah, I think there was a time when things were just getting trashed. I think that that's starting to shift.
All right, thank you for answering that.
Yeah,
I don't see any other questions coming up so far. If anyone has any, please put them in the chat. I did want to mention Cook County Higher Education's building. We do have one of those TerraCycle waste boxes.
great.
So people can put things in it. I will double check. So we'll send out all the links that have been shared and probably your slides if you're comfortable sending those out.
Absolutely.
And so I'll include in that to verify which box it is we have. I'm not in the building very often anymore, so I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure it's the all-in-one waste box. So you can put all kinds of different stuff in it. So that's another resource in the community.
That's great. And I know that Zero Waste Cook County, Denny has access to a couple of the free brigades. And then through my connections in the Twin Cities, I have access to a couple free brigades as well. And that just requires, sharing the labels with each other. And so I believe we have access to the toiletry brigade. There's a couple others. Some of them have shifted during COVID, but I can look and see which ones we have access to. The thing about that is just finding places to host it that are central enough that people have access to them. So, we're maybe the community center, maybe Cook County Higher Ed, maybe some other places might be willing to host the boxes that we have. So that's the hurdle of getting those accessible. I know the co-op had them for a little while as well. So before COVID. So we're going to try to amp that back up again through Zero Waste Cook County and meeting together to make those things happen.
That's fantastic news. Yeah, love to hear that. Let's see, one thing just popped up. Is there a shred spot other than once a year in Cook County, or is there a place in Duluth that we can go to?
I know the bank is at the once a year shred at the bank. They do that. I was told by the recycling center, thank you for talking about shredded paper. I realize I missed that. They do take shredded paper. You just kind of let them know and hand it to them and they'll take care of it. Just bring it in a bag, in like a paper bag, and they'll figure out where to take it. They just don't want shredded paper in the paper because it just gets everywhere. So,
yeah.
Yep. But they said that if you want to hand it to them in a bag, that's fine. Is that what you heard too, Kat? That they told you like it's okay to put shredded paper in a bag?
I honestly don't recall, so don't quote me on that. I'm not certain. The other thing I can think of, as well as the earlier recycling question, with if a high percentage of things were not actually recycled or not, there's definitely an issue with people not cleaning their recycling properly, or with wish cycling. When you have bigger systems, if you don't properly clean or sort your recycling, they will just dump huge sections of what has been recycled because they're not going to individually sort out everything. So that's another issue when it comes down to people recycling improperly, and more things end up being tossed. So that's, I think, another part of that equation.
In Minnesota, we have something that mitigates that. We have laws. So the recyclers in the cities will be taxed at a different higher rate if they end up trashing more than a certain percentage of the materials that come into their MRFs in the cities. They've created legislation to prevent that from happening. So they'll get if the percentage of contamination reaches a certain point, their tax level for that trash goes like up to the municipal, like 70%. So they are very, 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 they do not want to do that because it's very, very expensive for them to do that. So that's one of the reasons why too, like some of the MRFs in the cities just aren't collecting black plastic because they don't want to deal with having to sort that and then missorting it and having to be trash. They are really, they invest a lot of money in education because it has a good return on investment for them to not have to pay for the trash that for contamination. So, but I know like in other states, they may not necessarily have those tax sticks that whack them with. So, you know, on the coasts, maybe they don't do that. I was looking at some stuff in San Francisco, man, oh man, did they have it together there for stuff. I don't know, that's where you lived. It was, yeah, it's, they 25 cents a bag for, I mean, they've got it down. Lots to learn from other parts of the country. But again, to realize that trash is local and solutions are local and contextual as well. So
exactly. So if it's an issue locally, we can work on it together and help support the recycling center in our county and make some good solutions for our community moving forward, which is, we can make that happen. Thank you so much, Kristina.
Yeah.
This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for putting this together and collaborating with us on this for this evening.
You're welcome. And usually when I do it in person, I have a lot, it's not so dry. I have time for jokes and I have time for like funny things and videos, and I do little dances and, you know, but yeah, so that wasn't quite as animated. I feel like it was a little dry, but thank you for coming, and I hope it wasn't boring.
No, this is, I mean, I'm speaking on my end. This was fantastic.
Awesome.
And on my end, I'm Kat Mayo. I work for Cook County Local Energy Project. I had the opportunity to collaborate with Cook County Higher Education and Kristina Mattson here to help make this presentation a reality. This is definitely something that a lot of people in our community have been really interested in. So, you know, spread the word to other folks if they've got questions. This is supposed to be a really excellent resource for our community. So we'll have it on Cook County Higher Education's website, so you can go ahead and click on that. Have the YouTube video as easy as just click away, as well as on our website at cookcountylocalenergy.org. And we'll just make sure all these are accessible. I'm sure we'll jump on and add it to Cook County Zero Waste and all that good stuff. But you know, this is something that we want more people in our community to know about. So the more informed and educated everyone is, the more resilient our system is locally. So we just want to get everyone on board so we can really support our local workers here. You know, they're wonderful people. They've worked really hard. They've been essential workers. They work their butts off every single day, except for Sundays, for us. And you know, when you go down and drop off your recycling, please, if you see them, thank them.
Yes.
You know, they don't get enough thank yous, and they work really hard, freezing cold weather to really, really hot temperatures, especially in the summer. And some of those trailers that they're packing can get over 100 degrees. And those guys really deserve to be thanked more often. So
and they're so nice. They're so nice. Like, okay, so I want to make sure too, if you're coming to the recycling center and you got something you don't know, just kind of tap on the door and ask them a question. They want you to ask. They really, really do. Like, they're not just saying it, like they really want you to ask, because they know that if you ask, it's going to save them so much time down the line.
Exactly.
And they're so nice. They're so nice. Like one time I came over, I was like, hey, do you want a tour? I was like, sure. And they were just so welcoming, because I kind of introduced myself and some of the things I do. And so they're a part of our community, and they work so hard, and they are essential. They're the front lines.
They really are.
Yep.
And some of them have experienced some really horrible and disgusting things that they should not have to deal with in their own workplace. So spread the knowledge to your community, to your circles, get everyone on board and informed, and let's treat them a little better with as much respect as they deserve. For sure.
One more thing I wanted to mention before we go in, and we're going over on time, all of the recycling containers in town are run by the Lions Club. So all those ones next to the garbage cans that you see, those are the Lions Club. That's not the county or the city. So the Lions Club does need people to help sort. They do have sort events because everything is commingled, and they have to sort it for the source separated recycling center we have. So we will make sure that we're posting if they're wanting people to volunteer. we will get that information out to get the community to help them out. Thank you again for everybody
Wonderful.
being here, and thank you for all the questions, and reach out, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and head on over to the Zero Waste Cook County Facebook page. We also have a Facebook group called Zero Waste Cook County Connection Group, where you can just ask all these questions and connect with other low waste minded people and talk trash.
Yay.
All right. Thank you very much.
you.
This has
Have a
been
good night.
wonderful. All right. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Kristina. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks.